back to two film buffs, and this is the top 10 most iconic cars in movies. At number 10 we have Blade's 1968 Dodge Charger. Now, even though this car was underused throughout the movie and the movies, it was in quite a good few scenes, and it is just absolutely gorgeous, and it absolutely just purrs to perfection. I think this car was absolutely perfect for Blade and Wesley Snipes. I think it was an awesome transition from the comic book strip and the cartoon to the movie, and it simply is just a badass choice for a car. At number 9 we have something from our end of the pond, the Reliant Regal from Only Fools and Horses. Now, I can imagine quite a few people are probably going to jump down my throat about choosing this car, but I do not care. It is my opinion and it is what I want on this video. It is an iconic car, especially in the UK. Everyone around the world should love this car. It is just such a brilliant little vehicle. It's just so fun to look at, and I remember when I was growing up there was actually one down my road that was actually based off this. I'm not sure if they used that in the filming of Only Fools and Horses, but I loved seeing it whenever I saw it. Up next we have the Aston Martin DB5 from the James Bond franchise. The DB5 was famous for movies like Goldfinger, but has also turned up in more recent films from the Daniel Craig era. Yes, James Bond 007 had many different Aston Martins and a few other cars, but the DB5 is what fans mostly know that James Bond drives. And it is worldly known as being the iconic James Bond car. Hit me in the comments if you disagree. Up next we have probably the most sexiest car on this list, Eleanor, the Ford Mustang from Gone in 60 Seconds. Honestly, for me, words cannot describe this car. When you see it on screen and when you see it in person, it is just breathtaking. It is a work of art. From the panel work to the color of the car to the sound of the engine to everything about this car is absolute perfection from Ford. But just the way that Nicolas Cage describes the car and how he just lusts over it is just how like every guy basically thinks of this car, but just in a very eccentric Nicolas Cage way. Up next we have a big childhood favourite of mine, the sheepdog van from Dumb and Dumber. I mean, who wouldn't want to drive this car? It looks like a giant dog. It just screams fun whenever you're riding around in it, and it just kind of screams dumb as well, but I love that. I mean, as far as iconic movie cars go, I think the sheepdog van from Dumb and Dumber does get passed over tons, but how can you not look at that and go straight away, that's from Dumb and Dumber? And I'd honestly love to know whether they thought of that idea for the movie or they saw that car and thought we need to put this in our Dumb and Dumber movie. If you do know, please let me know down below. Halfway through our list and we have the Ecto 1 and 2 from Ghostbusters. Ecto 1 was a 1959 Cadillac Miller Mater ambulance. It was a coach-built professional use vehicle that rode on a rugged chassis. I think this was a brilliant choice of car for the movie. It's exactly what they would have done to make this car for the Ghostbusters. And yes, there are better looking movie cars out there, there are better looking cars out there, but it doesn't matter. This is such an iconic car. They brought an ugly looking car and made it beautiful. In my opinion anyway. Not only are the movies iconic, but the car is also very iconic itself. Usually in movies, like when they keep changing the vehicle, they've kept this one quite the same. They had it the same as in Ghostbusters 1 and 2, obviously with slight modifications. And then in the newer films at the moment, you've seen the car come back and it looked even more beautiful on these newer cameras. Up next on our list, we have another 90s classic, the Ford Explorer XLT from Jurassic Park. Now I know again, like previous entries, this car isn't used throughout the movie quite a lot, but it is in some very iconic scenes, and it is for me an iconic movie car. Again, you can just look at this vehicle and you just know that's from Jurassic Park, not with just the logo, but you just have that same, it has the same color, the same feel, the whole Jurassic vibe about it. I just absolutely adore this car. I didn't really like the Jurassic World ones with the new different color layout, but I did love when they went back and kind of showed like the old ones and that. I think it's just, I absolutely just love the layout of these cars. I would love to have one day, and I would love to paint it in the exact style of the Jurassic Park cars. And also if you go to like Universal Studios and that, you can see these cars and they're just beautiful. Up next we have one of my favourite vehicles of all time, if not my favourite vehicle of all time, the Dodge Charger General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard. I mean, the 69 Charger, the General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard is such a beautiful car. I mean, the colour of the car, I mean that beautiful kind of sunburn orange or whatever type of orange it is just absolutely gorgeous. For me, I call it the Dodge Charger orange because that is the only car that should be that colour, and I think that car, specifically the 69, should be that orange. The reason why I say that is because I love the 68 version in Blades colors. But for me, you cannot beat the sound of this car. It just sounds so sexy and just so beautiful. If you know and you love cars like I do, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Coming in at number 2, we have the Batmobile from 1989. Now, in more recent times, there have been more Batmobiles. It's not that I necessarily don't like them, I just do prefer this Batmobile from 1989. For me, it is the perfect Batmobile. It is beautiful, and in it is just absolutely stunning. I know I keep saying that these cars are beautiful, but it's because they are, and it's what makes them so iconic and why they are on this iconic list of movie cars. So yeah, as I was saying, Batman does have certain other Batmobiles that have been cool. In my opinion, there have only ever been 2 Batmobiles that were cool, and one was the Tumbler in the Dark Knight franchise, and then in the more recent The Batman, they used the 1970 Plymouth Barracuda with a Ford Triton V10 engine. Absolute beast of an engine and a car. But we're talking about this Batmobile, and because it is so iconic, as I said, it's the reason it is on this list. It just screams Batman. I think it is just so sleek and just everything about it. I love that they're from the Michael Keaton movies, which are the best Batman movies in my opinion, and it's just the best one. You can't come to me and say there's another better Batmobile. I know, like, technically the Plymouth is an unbelievably beautiful car, and I do love it, and I would probably, if I got to choose to drive one of them, it'd probably be that one because it looks a bit more better to drive. But if I had to have one, it'd be this Batmobile right here. Before we hit our number 1 spot, here's a few honourable mentions. Mr. Bean's Mini, the Griswold family car, the Chevrolet C10 from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Judge from Sex Drive. And finally, at number 1 on our list, we have the DMC DeLorean from the Back to the Future franchise. You guys by now must have known it was coming. It obviously is the time machine, the DeLorean, made by Dr. Emmett Brown himself. I mean, as he said,
the way I see it, if you're gonna build a time machine into a car, why not do it with some style?
And style this car had. I mean, think about it, guys. From the 80s, this car still screams the future. I know it doesn't look that impressive right now, but don't you think it kind of has that Millennium Falcon feel now? Kind of like what Luke says.
What a piece of junk!
But then we all have that kind of like Han Solo attachment to it, and it is all our DeLorean. That it is just the most iconic movie car. It is beautiful. It is so stunning. I love this car so much. If I ever did own this DMC DeLorean, you know for a fact that I'm putting the exhaust tips on it. It's going to have the Mr. Fusion. It's going to have all the bells and whistles. It's going to have the flux capacitor. And this is what I love about movie cars. It brings the car enthusiasts and the movie lovers together, and they can actually have that type of moment together where they really enjoy each other's time and not bore each other about their separate conversations. But whenever I go to places like Universal Studios, or I see like a car meets and I see like these cars, I just spend most of my time like kind of gathered around them. I'm like, oh, this car is from this movie, and I take pictures and I love it. I mean, personally, I think this has to be one of the most famous cars in the world. I would love to see if there's actually someone out there that I can show this car to, and they're like, I don't know where that is or what that's from or what it does. For me, they couldn't have chosen a more perfect car for the movie. Seems like it was perfectly built for the movie to be a time machine, to be Doc Brown's time machine. Maybe it was destiny. But that's all we got time for today, guys. That was the top 10 iconic movie cars. Please like, comment and subscribe. Big thank you to everyone who's been supporting the channel so far. We love you, we appreciate you so much, and we'll see you next time.